The crayon marks told a story I didn't want to read. I found Emily's drawing crumpled in the kitchen trash, beneath coffee grounds and yesterday's takeout containers. My 8-year-old daughter had sketched herself in purple crayon, stick arms, triangle dress, the usual kid stuff. But the yellow and brown smudges around her neck and arms weren't artistic choices. They were too deliberate, too placed. And the tall shadow looming over her stick figure had 5 o'clock stubble drawn in careful black strokes. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Accidents don't have facial hair, I muttered, smoothing the paper against the counter. Tanya walked in, designer heels clicking against our kitchen tiles like a countdown timer. She'd been out late again, claiming research for her freelance articles about modern relationships and personal freedom. The kind of articles that paid our mortgage while I struggled to find steady work after my intelligence analyst career went up in flames. What's that? She glanced at the drawing, her expression shifting from mild curiosity to something harder. Emily's artwork, found it in the trash. I held it up. Want to explain the bruises she drew on herself? Tanya's laugh came out sharp and dismissive. Logan, she's 8. Kids draw weird things. Remember when she went through that phase of drawing everyone as zombies? Zombies don't leave fingerprint patterns on necks. She snatched the paper from my hands, crumpling it again. You're being paranoid. Emily fell off her bike yesterday, remember? Kids bruise easily. I watched my wife of 10 years lie to my face with the same confidence she used when pitching story ideas to editors. The bike story was new. Yesterday she'd claimed Emily bumped into a door. The day before, it was rough play at school. Where were you last night? I asked. Working. I told you, I'm interviewing sources for the polyamory piece. She tossed the drawing back into the trash. Derrick's been incredibly helpful with insights into alternative relationship structures. Derrick Mason, the tech consultant who'd become Tanya's go-to source for every article she'd written in the past 3 months. Funny how her research always required late-night meetings at his place. Right, research. I poured coffee into my chipped mug, the one Emily had painted for Father's Day 2 years ago. How's that working out for you? Tanya's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just wondering when your journalism started requiring so much hands-on investigation. She grabbed her purse and laptop bag, movements sharp with irritation. Some of us are trying to build careers instead of wallowing in self-pity. Maybe if you spent less time analyzing everyone else's motives and more time finding actual work, we wouldn't need my income to keep this house. The kitchen door slammed behind her. Through the window, I watched her drive off in the BMW I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, back when I still had a government salary and naive faith in marital promises. I retrieved Emily's drawing from the trash and studied it again. The shadow figure wore what looked like a tie. Derrick always wore ties, expensive silk ones that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. My phone buzzed with a text from Rick Dorsey, my old friend who owned Murphy's boxing gym downtown. Coffee later? Got something to show you? Rick was ex-police, the kind of guy who noticed things other people missed. If he had something to show me, it wasn't good news. I texted back, "Be there in an hour." Emily wandered into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, dark hair messy from sleep. She looked so much like Tanya at that age. Or at least how I imagined Tanya had looked before ambition and social media turned her into someone I barely recognized. Morning, kiddo, want pancakes? She nodded, climbing onto her usual stool at the breakfast bar. As I mixed batter, I noticed her favoring her left arm, moving it carefully like something hurt. Emily, can you show me where you fell off your bike yesterday? She looked confused. I didn't fall off my bike yesterday. Your mom said you did. That's how you got those bruises on your arm. Emily's face went very still. the way kids' faces do when they realize adults are saying things that don't match reality. I didn't ride my bike yesterday. It's still broken from last week. The spatula slipped from my hand, clattering against the stovetop. I turned to face my daughter, keeping my voice gentle despite the rage building in my chest. "Emily, honey, how did you get hurt?" She looked toward the doorway, checking if anyone else was listening, then whispered, "Derrick said I shouldn't tell. He said it would make Mommy sad." The pancake batter started smoking on the griddle. I turned off the burner and knelt beside Emily's stool, meeting her eyes. "What did Derrick do?" "He gets angry when I'm loud during his meetings with Mommy. Yesterday I dropped my juice cup and it made noise. He grabbed my arm really tight and said I was being disrespectful." She rolled up her pajama sleeve, revealing finger-shaped bruises in various stages of healing. "He said sorry after, but it still hurt." I stared at those marks, evidence of a grown man hurting my child, and felt something cold and calculating settle into my brain. The same analytical calm that had served me well in intelligence work back when I was good at reading people and predicting their moves. Derrick Mason had made a mistake. He'd hurt my daughter and convinced her to keep secrets. He was sleeping with my wife and probably laughing about it with his tech bros over craft beer and cryptocurrency discussions. But his biggest mistake was assuming I'd stay down after my career implosion, that I'd keep playing the role of washed-up has-been while he played house with my family. I helped Emily with her pancakes, keeping conversation light while my mind worked through possibilities. After she went upstairs to get dressed for school, I called in sick to my part-time security job and started making plans. First stop, Rick's gym. If anyone could help me figure out how to handle Derrick Mason, it was a former cop who'd seen every kind of scumbag the city had to offer. I grabbed my jacket and car keys, pausing at the kitchen trash can. Emily's drawing lay crumpled among the coffee grounds, but I could still see those careful crayon bruises and the shadow figure looming over her stick body. "Game on, Derrick," I said to the empty kitchen. "Let's see how you handle someone your own size." Murphy's boxing gym occupied a converted warehouse in the part of town where gentrification hadn't quite reached yet. The air inside smelled like sweat, leather, and the kind of honest work that didn't require lying to people you loved. Rick Dorsey looked up from wrapping hand tape around a college kid's knuckles. At 45, Rick still moved like the street cop he'd been for 15 years before opening this place. Gray streaked his black hair, and his knuckles bore the scars of someone who'd settled disputes with more than words. "Logan, you look like hell." "Feel worse." I accepted the coffee he handed me, black and strong. "What did you want to show me?" Rick nodded toward his office, a glass-walled space overlooking the main gym floor. Inside, he pulled out his phone and scrolled to a video. "My nephew Jake works at that new co-working space downtown. Sent me this yesterday, thought I might find it interesting." The video showed the lobby of Tech Hub, one of those trendy shared office spaces with exposed brick and overpriced coffee. The timestamp read 11:47 p.m., well past normal business hours. On screen, Tanya emerged from an elevator, hair messed up, lipstick gone. 30 seconds later, Derrick followed, adjusting his tie and checking his watch. They didn't leave together, but the implication was clear enough. Jake says they've been meeting there for months. Always late evening, always leave separately. Rick paused the video. "Sorry, man. I know this isn't easy to see." I studied Derrick's face on the frozen screen. Mid-30s, decent looking in that generic tech bro way, with the kind of confident smile that suggested he'd never faced real consequences for anything. "There's more." Rick swiped to another video. "This one's from 2 nights ago." Same lobby, different night. This time the audio was clearer. I could hear voices as Tanya and Derrick waited for their separate rides. "Logan's getting suspicious," Tanya was saying. "He asked where I was last night." "So what? You're allowed to have a career. Besides, what's he gonna do about it? Guy can't even hold down a real job anymore." They laughed together, the casual cruelty of people who thought they were untouchable. "What about Emily?" Tanya asked. "She's been asking questions about why you're around so much. Kid needs to learn some respect. I'm trying to help her, but she's stubborn like her father." My coffee cup cracked in my grip. Rick noticed and handed me a towel for the spill. "There's one more thing," he said quietly. "Jake mentioned Derrick's been bragging about his setup. Apparently, he's got some kind of side business that's making serious money. Enough to afford that penthouse apartment and the Tesla." "What kind of side business?" Jake wasn't sure. Something about consulting for companies that want to improve their employee satisfaction metrics. Whatever that means. I wiped coffee off my hands, thinking. In my analyst days, I'd learned that people like Derrick always had angles. The legitimate tech consulting was probably just cover for something more profitable and less legal. "I need to know more about him. Can Jake get me building access?" Rick raised an eyebrow. "Logan, what are you planning?" "Research. Same kind Tanya's been doing." An hour later, I was in the tech hub lobby with a temporary access card Jake had provided, along with a story about being a potential new tenant. The building's security was typical startup casual, more focused on looking cool than actual protection. Derrick's reserved workspace was on the 3rd floor, in a corner spot with windows overlooking the city. His desk was neat, organized, the kind of space that screamed successful professional. But people always left traces of their real selves if you knew where to look. I started with the obvious places. His desk drawers were locked, but the locks were cheap. A paperclip and 30 seconds of work got me inside. The top drawer contained the usual office supplies, but underneath a stack of business cards, I found something interesting. Printed emails between Derrick and someone named VIP Consulting Solutions. The emails discussed client satisfaction services and discreet consultation fees in amounts that made my security guard salary look like pocket change. The second drawer held a tablet he'd apparently forgotten about. The screen was cracked, probably why he'd abandoned it, but it still powered on. His email was still logged in, sloppy security for someone in tech. I scrolled through months of messages, building a picture of Derrick's real business. He wasn't just consulting on employee satisfaction. He was running some kind of high-end escort coordination service, connecting wealthy clients with professional companions for business events and private meetings. The operation was sophisticated, with encrypted communications and carefully coded language, but the intent was clear. Derrick was essentially a high-tech pimp with a business degree and a LinkedIn profile. More interesting were his personal emails. Messages to other women using the same lines he'd apparently used on Tanya. Photos of expensive gifts, promises of career advancement, threats when women tried to leave. One email chain made me tense up. A woman named Sarah had tried to end things with Derrick after he'd gotten violent during an argument. His response was a detailed list of ways he could destroy her reputation and career, complete with screenshots of private photos she'd sent him. Sarah's final message was heartbreaking. "Please just leave me alone. I won't tell anyone anything. I just want this to be over." Derrick's reply, "Smart girl. Remember, I know where you work, where you live, and what you're afraid of. Keep it that way." I photographed everything, uploading the images to a secure cloud account. Then I kept digging. His browser history revealed regular visits to social media profiles, not just casual browsing, but systematic stalking of ex-girlfriends, business rivals, and anyone who'd crossed him. He kept detailed notes on people's weaknesses, fears, and vulnerabilities. In a folder labeled Insurance, I found files on dozens of people, including photos, personal information, and compromising material. Blackmail insurance in case anyone ever threatened his operations. Tanya had her own folder. Photos of her at the gym, shopping, dropping Emily off at school. Screenshots of her social media posts, her work emails, even her text messages to friends. He'd been monitoring her completely, probably from the moment they'd started their affair. But it was Emily's folder that made me see red. Photos of my daughter at school, at the playground, walking to the bus stop. Notes about her schedule, her friends, her teachers. And a document titled Leverage Assessment that discussed Emily's emotional vulnerabilities and how they could be utilized for compliance management. The bastard was studying my 8-year-old daughter like she was a business problem to be solved. I copied everything to my phone and cloud storage, then carefully returned the tablet to its drawer. As I prepared to leave, I noticed Derrick's coffee mug on his desk, one of those expensive ceramic ones with his company logo. On impulse, I picked it up and dropped it on the concrete floor. It shattered into a dozen pieces, ceramic shards scattering across the polished workspace. Then I wrote a note on his whiteboard. Accidents happen, especially to people who hurt children. I was halfway to the elevator when I heard voices in the hallway. Derrick's laugh, unmistakable and confident, getting closer. Told her husband I was helping with research. Guy's so pathetic he actually believed it. What about the kid? Another male voice, unfamiliar. She's learning to behave. Kids need structure, discipline. Her father's too weak to provide it. They were almost at the workspace door. I ducked into a supply closet, leaving the door cracked just enough to see out. Derrick walked into his workspace with another man, older, well-dressed, with the predatory smile of someone used to buying whatever he wanted. Jesus Christ! Derrick's voice went sharp when he saw the broken mug and my message on his whiteboard. Someone was in here. Problem? The older man asked. Maybe. I've been having issues with a client's husband, jealous type. Derrick erased my message, his movements angry and quick. Nothing I can't handle. Better make sure. We can't afford complications right now, not with the new contracts coming in. They talked for another few minutes about business. Their satisfaction services were apparently expanding into corporate consulting, helping companies manage difficult employees through blackmail and intimidation. After they left, I waited 10 minutes before emerging from the closet. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage. Derrick wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was running a criminal enterprise and treating my family like his personal property. But now, I had ammunition. Photos, emails, evidence of his real business, and his threats against other women. Enough to destroy him completely if I played it right. I drove home thinking about strategy. In intelligence work, the best operations were the ones where the target destroyed themselves. You just had to apply the right pressure in the right places and let their own weaknesses do the rest. Derrick Mason thought he was untouchable. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The next morning brought an unwelcome surprise. I was drinking coffee and reviewing the evidence I'd gathered on Derrick when Tanya walked into the kitchen with an announcement that made my pressure spike. I've invited Derrick to Emily's school art show tomorrow night. I looked up from my laptop. You what? He's been mentoring me professionally, Logan. It's important for him to understand all aspects of my life, including my role as a mother. She poured herself coffee, movements precise and defensive. Besides, Emily likes him. Emily's afraid of him. That's ridiculous. She's just shy around new people. I thought about the bruises on Emily's arm, the careful way she moved when Derrick was around, the fear in her voice when she'd whispered about keeping secrets. Tanya, I don't want him around our daughter. Her laugh was sharp and dismissive. You don't get to make unilateral decisions about Emily's social exposure. Derrick is successful, educated, and he's teaching her about respect and proper behavior. By grabbing her hard enough to leave bruises? Tanya's face went very still. What are you talking about? Emily told me. Derrick hurt her because she made noise during one of your research sessions. He grabbed her arm and threatened her. That's not what happened. But her voice lacked conviction. Emily misunderstood. Derrick was just trying to teach her about indoor voices. Show me your phone. Excuse me? Your phone. Let me see your messages with Derrick. Tanya clutched her purse closer. That's private communication related to my work. You have no right to. I have every right when it involves my daughter's safety. She backed toward the door, eyes darting like a cornered animal. You're being paranoid and controlling. This is exactly why our marriage is failing, Logan. You can't stand that I'm successful, that I have professional relationships you're not part of. Professional relationships. I stood up, letting her see the anger I'd been holding back. Is that what we're calling it? I don't know what you think you know, but you're wrong. Derrick and I have a strictly professional relationship focused on my career development. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward her. Rick's nephew had sent more video overnight. This one showing Tanya and Derrick in a very unprofessional embrace outside the Tech Hub building. Tanya's face went white, then red. You've been having me followed? I've been trying to understand why my wife lies to me about where she spends her nights. How dare you spy on me? This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior that drove me to seek mentorship elsewhere. She was getting louder, more defensive. Derrick understands my ambitions. He supports my goals instead of resenting my success. Derrick is using you, Tanya. He's not a legitimate consultant. He runs an escort service. You're just another woman he's manipulating for sex and entertainment. She slapped me. Hard. The sound echoed through our kitchen like a gunshot. Don't you dare try to destroy my professional relationships because you're jealous of successful men. Her voice was shaking with rage. Derrick has connections throughout the industry. He's helping me build a real career. By sleeping with you. My personal choices are none of your business anymore, Logan. We've been growing apart for months. Maybe it's time to admit this marriage isn't working. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back with a look of pure venom. Derrick will be at Emily's art show tomorrow night, as my guest. If you cause a scene, if you embarrass me in front of other parents, I'll make sure you regret it. The door slammed behind her. I sat in the sudden silence, touching my cheek where her hand had left a red mark. My phone rang, Rick's name on the caller ID. You need to get down here, he said without preamble. Now. 20 minutes later, I was back at Murphy's gym, following Rick into his office. He had papers spread across his desk, printouts, photographs, and what looked like police reports. Remember I mentioned Derrick's side business? I made some calls to guys I know in Vice. Rick handed me a thick folder. Your boy's been on their radar for 6 months. I flipped through the documents. Police surveillance photos of Derrick meeting with various women at expensive hotels. Financial records showing suspicious cash deposits. Witness statements from women who'd tried to report him for harassment, blackmail, and assault. Why hasn't he been arrested? He's smart. Keeps everything just legal enough to avoid prosecution. The escort coordination is technically just social consulting. The blackmail is reputation management. And he's got connections. City councilman's son, apparently. Daddy's been making phone calls. I studied a photograph of Derrick outside a downtown hotel with a woman who looked barely legal. What about the assault charges? Victims keep withdrawing their complaints. He's got enough dirt on these women to keep them quiet. Rick leaned back in his chair. But here's the interesting part. Word is, someone's been asking questions about him. Professional-level inquiries. The kind that make people nervous. What kind of people? The kind who don't like attention from law enforcement. Derrick's been bragging about his political connections, but if his operation brings heat on other businesses, Rick shrugged. Let's just say, there are people in this city who handle problems permanently. I thought about that as I drove home. Derrick had made enemies in dangerous places, but he was too arrogant to realize it. He thought his daddy's connections and his blackmail files made him untouchable. That evening, Emily came home from school unusually quiet. She did her homework without being asked, ate dinner without talking, and went to bed early. Classic signs of a kid trying to avoid adult attention. I found her in her room, drawing at her little desk. This time she was using black crayon almost exclusively, dark, angry scribbles that covered most of the paper. What are you drawing, kiddo? Nothing. She didn't look up. Just scribbles. I sat on her bed, close enough to see the drawing, but not hovering. The scribbles weren't random. They formed shapes. A house, stick figures, and something that might have been a car. "Emily, are you worried about something?" She stopped coloring. "Mommy said Derrick is coming to my art show tomorrow." "How do you feel about that?" "I don't want him to come." Her voice was very small. "He makes me feel scared." "Why does he make you feel scared?" She finally looked at me, eyes wide and serious. "He says things to Mommy that make her cry, and he looks at me like I'm bad." "You're not bad, Emily. You're perfect exactly the way you are. Derrick says I need to learn respect. He says Daddy never taught me properly." The rage that had been simmering all day flared white-hot. I kept my voice calm through sheer willpower. "What else does Derrick say?" "He tells Mommy that you're weak, that Emily needs a strong man to teach her how to behave." She was whispering now, like she was afraid someone would hear. "He said maybe I should come live with him and Mommy in his fancy apartment." "That's not going to happen, sweetheart. You're staying right here with me." "Promise?" "Promise." After Emily was asleep, I sat in my home office and planned. Tomorrow night, Derrick would be in a public place, surrounded by parents and teachers, playing the role of successful mentor and family friend. He expected me to cause a scene, to play the jealous husband and make Tanya look like the victim of an unstable ex. That would give him everything he needed, justification for taking Emily away from me and completing his takeover of my family. But I had other plans. I opened my laptop and started typing emails to addresses I'd found in Derrick's files. His business partners, his clients, his political connections. Anonymous messages with attachments, photos, financial records, evidence of his real business operations. By morning, Derrick Mason's carefully constructed world would start falling apart, and tomorrow night's art show would be the perfect place to watch him realize it. I worked until 3 a.m., crafting each message carefully, timing the delivery for maximum impact. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. Tomorrow, Derrick would learn what happened when someone threatened my family. The elementary school multi-purpose room buzzed with the controlled chaos of parents admiring their children's artwork. Colorful drawings and clay sculptures lined the walls, each tagged with a proud nameplate and grade level. Emily's contribution, a surprisingly sophisticated watercolor of our backyard garden, hung in the second grade section, drawing compliments from other parents. I stood near Emily's artwork, watching her beam with pride as her teacher praised her use of color. For a moment, the scene felt normal, like the kind of family evening we used to have before everything went to hell. Then Derrick walked in. He'd dressed for the occasion, expensive casual wear that screamed successful professional slumming with the suburban families. Designer jeans, tailored blazer, shoes that probably cost more than most parents here made in a week. Tanya appeared at his side immediately, playing the role of gracious hostess. She wore a new dress I'd never seen before, something that fit her perfectly and probably came from the kind of boutique that didn't list prices on their website. "Logan." Tanya's voice carried across the room, artificially bright. "Come meet Derrick properly." I walked over, noting how Emily moved closer to me as Derrick approached. My daughter's instincts were better than her mother's. "Derrick Mason." He extended a hand, grip firm and challenging. "I've heard a lot about you." "I bet you have." I shook his hand, matching his pressure. "Tanya's told me about your mentoring." His smile was perfectly calibrated, confident but not arrogant, friendly but not familiar, the kind of expression that looked great in professional headshots and hid everything important. I'm always happy to help talented writers develop their careers. Tanya has tremendous potential. I'm sure she does. We stood there for a moment, two men sizing each other up while Tanya watched nervously and Emily pressed against my leg. "Emily, sweetie," Derrick said, crouching down to her eye level. Your artwork is very impressive. You're quite talented. Emily mumbled a thank you and tried to hide behind me. Derrick's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. She's shy around new people, Tanya said quickly. Children need to learn social confidence, Derrick replied, still focused on Emily. It's important for their development. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his carefully maintained expression flickered. Just for a second, but I caught it. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped away, phone pressed to his ear. I couldn't hear his conversation over the room's noise, but his body language told the story. Stiff posture, sharp gestures, the kind of controlled anger that came from receiving very bad news. Is everything all right? Tanya asked when he returned. Business issue, nothing that can't be handled. But his eyes were harder now, scanning the room like he was looking for threats. My phone vibrated with a text from Rick. Package delivered, check the news. I excused myself to the bathroom and pulled up local news on my phone. The story was already breaking. City councilman's son under investigation for alleged escort ring. The article was light on details. Reporters were still gathering information, but it mentioned anonymous tips and ongoing police investigation. Derrick's name wasn't mentioned yet, but anyone who knew about his connections could read between the lines. When I returned to the art show, Derrick was on his phone again, speaking in sharp, quiet tones. Tanya stood beside him, looking confused and increasingly worried. Told you to keep this quiet until after. He noticed me approaching and ended the call abruptly. Everything okay? I asked innocently. Fine. His smile was strained now, cracks showing in his perfect facade. Just some business complications. Emily tugged on my sleeve. Daddy, can we go look at the third-grade art? Of course, kiddo. As we walked away, I heard Derrick's phone ring again. His greeting was terse. What now? The third-grade section was less crowded, giving Emily space to examine the older kids' more sophisticated projects. She was studying a clay sculpture when I noticed Derrick approaching, phone finally tucked away. Logan, I think we should talk, man to man. About what? About what's best for your family. He glanced around, making sure we weren't overheard. Tanya's told me about your difficulties, the job situation, the financial stress. It's affecting Emily. Emily's fine. Is she? She seems anxious, withdrawn. Children need stability, strong role models. His voice carried the kind of condescending concern that made my teeth ache. I've been thinking about ways to help. Help how? I have connections throughout the city, people who could offer you employment opportunities, help you get back on your feet. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Of course, that would require a certain level of cooperation. Cooperation with what? With Tanya's career development. She's at a crucial point professionally, and she needs support, not obstacles. His smile was sharp now, predatory. I'm sure you want what's best for her. I understood the subtext perfectly. Accept his takeover of my family gracefully, and he'd throw me enough work to keep me from complete financial ruin. Fight him, and he'd use his connections to make sure I never worked in this city again. That's very generous, I said carefully. I'm a generous man, especially to people who understand how things work. My phone buzzed with another text from Rick. Second wave incoming. Derrick's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and declined the call. It rang again immediately. Excuse me. He stepped away, but this time I was close enough to hear fragments of his conversation. Don't know how they got those files. Told you the security was handled. Need this contained before... His voice was getting sharper, more desperate. Whatever was happening on the other end of that call was making him panic. Emily wandered back over, carrying a small clay bowl she'd made in art class. Daddy, can we go home soon? I'm tired. Just a few more minutes, sweetheart. Derrick ended his call and returned, but his composure was cracking. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the room's comfortable temperature. Is there a problem? I asked. Nothing I can't handle. But his hands were shaking slightly as he checked his phone again. Tanya appeared, looking concerned. Derrick, you seem upset. What's going on? Business complications. We should probably leave soon. But we just got here. Emily's been looking forward to showing you her artwork. Another time. His tone was sharp enough that several nearby parents glanced over. Emily pressed closer to me, sensing the adult tension even if she didn't understand it. Actually, I said quietly, maybe we should all talk privately about Emily's safety. Derrick's eyes snapped to mine. What about Emily's safety? The bruises on her arm, the ones you left when you grabbed her for making noise. Tanya went pale. Logan, don't what? Don't protect my daughter from a man who hurts children? I never hurt anyone, Derrick said, but his voice lacked conviction. Emily, show Mommy your arm. My daughter looked between the adults, sensing she was at the center of something important and scary. Slowly, she rolled up her sleeve, revealing the fading but still visible finger-shaped bruises. Tanya stared at the marks, her face cycling through denial, realization, and horror. Derrick? Her voice was barely a whisper. It wasn't. She was being disruptive during an important call. I just needed her to understand. You grabbed my daughter hard enough to bruise her. It was discipline, not abuse. Children need boundaries. Children need protection from men like you. Derrick's phone rang again. This time when he answered, his face went completely white. I have to go. He ended the call and grabbed Tanya's arm. We're leaving. Now. Wait. Tanya tried to pull away, but his grip was tight enough that she winced. Now, Tanya. This isn't a request. I stepped between them. Let go of her. Stay out of this, Logan. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I know exactly what I'm dealing with. A criminal who hurts women and children. Several parents were staring now, conversations stopping as they sensed the confrontation building. You want to do this here? Derrick's voice was low and dangerous. In front of all these people? I want you to leave my family alone. Your family? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tanya made her choice months ago. Emily needs a real father figure, not a washed-up failure who can't even hold a job. Daddy? Emily's voice was small and scared. I knelt beside her, keeping my voice gentle. It's okay, sweetheart. Go find Mrs. Peterson and ask her to show you the kindergarten art. She nodded and hurried away, smart enough to recognize when adults were about to say things children shouldn't hear. When I stood up, Derrick was checking his phone again, face grim. This conversation is over, he said. Tanya, we're leaving. I'm not going anywhere with you, Tanya said quietly. She was staring at Emily's bruises, finally seeing what she'd been refusing to acknowledge. Yes, you are. We have business to discuss. No. Her voice was stronger now. I need to think about what's best for Emily. Derrick's careful mask finally slipped completely. You'll do what I tell you to do, or you'll regret it. I have enough information about your personal life to destroy your career permanently. Are you threatening her? I asked. I'm explaining reality. Tanya belongs to me now. Emily would be better off with a real father. And you? He smiled coldly. You're going to disappear quietly, or I'll make sure you wish you had. Is that a threat? It's a promise. That's when Rick Dorsey walked into the multi-purpose room, followed by two men I didn't recognize. They moved like cops, alert, purposeful, scanning the room automatically. Derrick saw them and went very still. Logan, Rick called out. Got a minute? The two strangers flanked Derrick while Rick approached our group. Derrick Mason? One of them asked, showing a badge. Detective Williams, City Police. We'd like to ask you some questions about your business operations. Derrick's face cycled through shock, rage, and calculation in the space of 3 seconds. I want a lawyer. That's your right, but we're just asking questions at this point. I said I want a lawyer. The detective nodded. We'll be in touch. Don't leave town, Mr. Mason. As the police walked away, Derrick turned to me with pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over. Yeah, I said quietly. It is. He left without another word, pushing through the crowd of curious parents. Tanya stood frozen, watching him go. Logan, she whispered. What did you do? What I should have done weeks ago. I protected our daughter. Emily ran back over, sensing the crisis had passed. She took my hand and looked up at me with complete trust. Can we go home now, Daddy? Yeah, kiddo, let's go home. As we walked to the car, my phone buzzed with a final text from Rick. Package fully delivered, problem solved. I looked back at the school, where parents were still buzzing about the dramatic confrontation they'd witnessed. Tomorrow, the whole story would be all over local news. But tonight, Emily was safe. Tanya was starting to see the truth, and Derrick Mason's world was collapsing around him. It was a good start. 3 days after the art show confrontation, Derrick's carefully constructed life finished falling apart in spectacular fashion. I was drinking coffee and reading the morning news when the headline caught my attention. Tech consultant arrested in connection with escort ring investigation. Below it, Derrick's professional headshot smiled confidently from the screen, a stark contrast to the mugshot that would probably replace it by evening. According to the article, police had raided his apartment and office, seizing computers, financial records, and what they diplomatically called evidence of organized criminal activity. The investigation had expanded to include charges of blackmail, harassment, and tax evasion. My phone rang, Rick's name on the caller ID. You see the news? He asked without preamble. Reading it now. How bad is it for him? Bad. Turns out when you piss off the wrong people, they stop protecting you real quick. His daddy's connections dried up overnight. What about the women he was blackmailing? Funny thing about that. Once word got out that his files were compromised, a lot of victims suddenly found their courage. District Attorney's office is drowning in complaints. I scrolled through the article, noting the careful language that suggested much more serious charges were coming. Any blowback on us? Clean as a whistle. Anonymous tips are anonymous, and everything we provided was obtained legally. Rick paused. Well, mostly legally. What about Tanya? What about her? I'd been wondering that myself for 3 days. Since the art show, Tanya had been staying at her sister's place, claiming she needed time to process everything. She'd called twice to check on Emily but hadn't mentioned Derrick or their relationship. I don't know what happens next, I admitted. That's up to her, isn't it? You did your job. You protected Emily and exposed the truth. The rest is Tanya's choice. After Rick hung up, I made breakfast for Emily and myself. She'd been unusually cheerful since the art show, like a weight had been lifted from her small shoulders. Kids were resilient, but they also knew when the adults in their lives were finally handling problems properly. Daddy, is Mommy coming home today? Emily asked around a mouthful of pancake. I don't know, sweetheart. She's staying with Aunt Sarah for a while. Because of Derrick? Because she needs to think about some grown-up things. Emily considered this seriously. I'm glad Derrick isn't coming over anymore. He made the house feel scary. He's not coming back, kiddo, I promise. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. T. I texted back. When and where? Murphy's gym, 1 hour. Rick said it was neutral ground. An hour later, I walked into Murphy's to find Tanya sitting in Rick's office, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd seen her in years. She'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Logan. She stood when I entered, then sat back down like she wasn't sure of the protocol for this conversation. Rick nodded at me from behind his desk. I'll give you two some privacy. He left, closing the door behind him. Tanya and I sat in silence for a moment, 10 years of marriage reduced to awkward uncertainty. I saw the news, she said finally. Yeah. How did they know to investigate him? I could have lied, made it sound like coincidence or karma. Instead, I told her the truth. I gave them everything. His business records, the blackmail files, evidence of his threats against other women. I met her eyes, and the photos of Emily's bruises. She flinched like I'd slapped her. You turned him in. I protected our daughter. He said he was helping her learn discipline. He was abusing her, Tanya, and you let it happen. Tears started down her cheeks, but she didn't try to wipe them away. I didn't know. I knew he was strict with her, but I thought... You thought what? That it was normal for a grown man to grab an 8-year-old hard enough to leave bruises? I thought maybe Emily was exaggerating. Kids do that sometimes. Or maybe you didn't want to see it because it would have complicated your affair. The words hung in the air between us like a physical barrier. It wasn't supposed to be an affair, she said quietly. It started as professional mentoring. He was helping me network, connecting me with editors and publishers. When did it become more? I don't know. Gradually. He was so confident, so successful. He made me feel like I could be successful too. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. You were so angry all the time after you lost your job. Everything I did seemed to irritate you. So you found someone else. I found someone who believed in me, who didn't resent my ambitions, and who hurt our daughter. She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands. I failed her. I failed both of you. I wanted to comfort her. 10 years of marriage didn't disappear overnight. But I couldn't forget Emily's whispered confessions, or the careful way she'd moved when Derrick was around. What do you want, Tanya? I want to come home. I want to fix this. How? I don't know. Counseling, maybe. Time. I'll do whatever it takes. I studied her face, looking for the woman I'd married, the one who'd laughed at my jokes and dreamed about our future together. Do you love him? I thought I did, but love doesn't involve hurting children, does it? No, it doesn't. Logan, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but Emily needs both her parents, and I need to make this right. Emily needs parents who put her safety first, always. I will. I swear I will. What about your career, your ambitions? I can build a career without compromising my family. I see that now. We sat in silence while I considered her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, to rebuild what we'd had before Derrick Mason poisoned our lives. But another part, the analytical part that had kept me alive in intelligence work, wondered if this was just another performance. I need time, I said finally. How much time? I don't know. Months, maybe. You can see Emily whenever you want, but you need to prove that you're committed to being the mother she deserves. And us? I don't know if there is an us anymore, Tanya. Trust takes time to rebuild, and you didn't just cheat on me. You endangered our daughter. She nodded, accepting the judgment. What about Derrick? What about him? Will you testify if there's a trial? If it helps convict him, yes. And so will Emily, if necessary. She's so young. She's young, but she's not stupid. She knows what he did to her. Tanya stood up, gathering her purse and jacket. I'm going to find a therapist, someone who specializes in family trauma. That's a good start. Logan? She paused at the door. Thank you for protecting her when I couldn't. After she left, Rick returned to his office. How'd it go? Hard to say. She seems genuinely sorry, but sorry doesn't undo the damage. No, it doesn't. Rick pulled out a beer and offered me one. I accepted it, even though it was barely noon. What's your gut tell you? He asked. My gut says she's scared and guilty and probably sincere about wanting to change. But my brain says people don't usually change that dramatically without serious intervention. Therapy might help. Maybe. Or maybe she'll decide it's too much work and find another Derrick Mason to validate her ambitions. We drank in comfortable silence, two middle-aged men contemplating the wreckage of a marriage and the complexity of human nature. "Emily's better off either way," Rick said eventually. "Yeah, she is." That evening, I picked Emily up from school and took her out for ice cream, a celebration of sorts, though she didn't know what we were celebrating. "Daddy, are you and Mommy getting divorced?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask?" "Sarah's parents got divorced last year. She said first her daddy moved out, then they had lots of meetings with lawyers, then they got divorced. Would that scare you?" Emily considered this seriously while licking her chocolate cone. "A little. But Sarah says it's better now because her parents don't fight anymore. Your mom and I aren't fighting anymore either. Because Derrick's gone? Because we're both focused on what's best for you." "Good." She smiled, chocolate smeared around her mouth. "I like it when grown-ups act like grown-ups." Out of the mouths of babes. 2 weeks later, Derrick Mason pled guilty to multiple felony charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. He'd serve 3 to 5 years in state prison, followed by probation and mandatory registration as a sex offender. The plea deal included full restitution to his victims and forfeiture of his assets: the penthouse apartment, the Tesla, the expensive toys that had impressed women like my wife. Tanya started therapy and began the slow process of rebuilding her relationship with Emily. She found freelance work that didn't require mentoring from predatory men, and she kept her promises about putting Emily's needs first. As for us, Tanya and me, that remained an open question. Some marriages survived infidelity and betrayal, others didn't. Time would tell which category we fell into. But Emily was safe, Derrick Mason was behind bars, and I'd learned something important about myself. When it mattered most, I could still be the man my family needed me to be. That was enough for now.